host the DeepTech AI panel. On the live and on the web, we have my following panelists: Jeremy Baksht, who is the GP at Dataframe Ventures; Jack Wu, who is the co-founder and CEO of Nightingale Securities, as Marty mentioned earlier; Oliver Christie, who is the co-founder of Voltare Consulting; and last but not least, John Liu, who is with Han Capital Management. So to begin, I'd love for the panelists, and actually before doing that, my name is Abhi Subramanian, as Marty mentioned. I run a private capital investment fund called GJ Private Capital. We are squarely focusing on technology and other sort of frontier themed industries. And before starting GGA in 2013, I was a merchant banker for about 17 years before that at Thomas Weisel Partners and Jefferies and Cohen, focusing on the same sector. So pleasure and happy to be here. So to kick it off, maybe we can go for the panelists one by one. Please introduce yourselves briefly and also provide your current focus and also maybe prior background that may be relevant to this discussion. Maybe starting with Jeremy.
Thank you so much for having me. And a plug for Abhi. He's been a great mentor and friend over the years. He was an advisor to my first startup about a decade ago. So thanks for the intro, Abhi. So this is Jeremy Baksht. I'm sorry I can't be there in person today. It probably would be a lot more fun, but at any rate, let me give you a quick background. I've got a few decades of experience in data and technologies. I was actually an investment banker for about a decade at JP Morgan and Citi, where I covered industrial technologies. And after doing a lot of M&A, LBOs, and some equities, what I really realized is the future, of course, of tech is being able to have information and feed machines with information. So I've spent the last 6-7 years now focused on data. I've had a few startups. One of the things I did that I'm particularly proud of and excited to share is I started and led the Bloomberg Alternative Data division. So I was at Bloomberg for a few years, focused on finding partnerships for very unique data sets that can be used in asset management. So we examined all kinds of data, whether it was web crawling, satellite data, lots of different data sets to feed decision machines. And what I really enjoyed about the role was just getting access to lots of young companies. So now I'm actually an investor in many companies in this category. So I guess my part of the panel, anything that relates into the data discovery, data usage, data tooling, data linking, all the things you need to do to feed AI and machine learning models, that's the kind of stuff I spend time on. So I've got access to lots of different companies in the space, whether it's content or that search and that tooling. So as I guess we talk through things, my focus is basically the AI feeding machines and data side.
Okay, moving on to Jack.
Hi, my name is Jack Wu. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Nightingale Security. Nightingale started back in June of 2014. We are a robotics company, creating autonomous drone technologies that combines proprietary hardware platforms and machine learning technology to address the multi-billion-dollar perimeter security market. Our patented robotic aerial security solution has been operating at customers' locations since late 2018. Our target market includes enterprise, defense, and emergency response. Typical locations for us include manufacturing, energy generation, energy storage, pharmaceutical research, mining, petroleum, military installations, and basically, if you're a critical infrastructure, we're there.
Great. Then Oliver.
Yes, hello, great to be here. So I'm an artificial intelligence consultant and advisor. I advise early stage companies and with a focus on early defense and joint use. So we go out there and find the sort of technologies which DARPA can't solve for. And then I thought today I would talk about the work I'm doing in the non-classified space, which I've got joint application. So it's the sort of J8 type situations. My focus is on quantum information theory. So the software side of quantum computing plus AI to figure out what that could solve for. We work very closely with the Defense Department to find the sort of things they're looking for. So it gives us quite unique access, both on the defense side, but we end up finding really interesting new technologies, which looks at information in a very different way.
Okay. And finally, John.
Hi, very nice to just join with you guys. Actually, you know, I graduated from UC San Diego with a PhD in physics, and also I graduated from the University of Pennsylvania Water School with a PhD finance. So it's kind of my focus is on the, you know, econometrics and finance. And since graduate, my first job, I worked with the, you know, the Credit Suisse bank. So that's the time we started to work with the AI. You know, we basically using the, not just the machine learning, basically, you know, the neural network machine learning. We are also use the Bayesian network also, basically a bunch of the non-parametric machine learning technique to use to, you know, proprietary trading strategy design, like a hedge fund. So, and also work with the City Group for a number of years for proprietary trading and hedge fund management. And also I'm the veteran of the SAC Stephen Cohen company also. And I founded the company Han Capital 2010. So we basically this company is a fund management company, focused both of hedge fund investment and also private equity investment also. And in 2016, you know, basically I end up the Hollywood. Now we have a movie production company. We basically creating and produce both feature movie and the TV series for global market, including the United States. So we have like a 40 project, movie and a TV series project created it. So we're gonna produce the next several years. And we're also raising like a 500 to $1 billion US private equity fund for the investment to produce this product also. And also, as I mentioned, you know, I started work AI at a very early period. At that time, essentially, you know, we use multiple Sun workstation to pile together to run the, you know, the algorithm. So try to find the best strategy for the hedge fund investment. So last year, I started a company called the Frontier AI. This company will focus on the AI technology. And also we kind of focus on the build a bunch of the ecosystem for different kind of industry and domain for the potential application. That's basically my background.
Great, thank you. So I had a bunch of questions we prepared for the panelists, but before going through them, maybe we can turn it over to Jack, who I think has a short video on his Nightingale.
Actually, I'll share a live demo right now. We're doing with the U.S. Coast Guard. So right now, this is I was supposed to be on this demo, but you know, I'm here instead. But this is actually right now being controlled by folks remotely from the East Coast. We were talking, so they're actually flying this while this is in Silicon Valley. We're in Newark, California. We're about 20 minutes away from Tesla and about 10 minutes away from Facebook. So what you're looking at is actually a live mission. On the right side is actually the base station. So I'm hoping that they will land soon in the next 10 seconds or so. But it looks like they're still talking to them, and we got plenty of batteries. So we might not be able to see that. But very quickly, what I can do is I can show you that we also have thermal. So basically, the system utilizes machine learning. I don't want to call it AI because AI is such a generic term, and it's really, you know, kind of, you know, mislabeled. But we actually can set auto detection zones where using computer vision, object recognition, and by learning through our machine learning model, we're able to recognize different objects. So if we're on a military base, we can recognize different military equipment. If we're just doing commercial security like this one, we're you know, able to recognize people or cars during a specific time of the day. And we can also respond to alerts. So if there's an alert, we'll be able to you know, respond to it. Anyway, I don't want to take up too much time. We got a lot of other folks here, but this is a live demo right now that we're flying. We have a video that I can show later if there's still time. So.
Okay. So just a segueing on the last statement. So DeepTech is obviously a pretty complex term with a lot of interpretations, spanning from AI to robotics, drone, touches on crypto, I guess, quantum computing, et cetera, biology. Can each of the panelists define, kind of what you consider, what your definition is of deep tech? And in that answer, if you can also contextualize how and where you invest in that broad space to the extent you're actively investing in that space. Maybe we start off with Jeremy and then go to each of the panelists.
Sure, my pleasure, Avi. So when I think about deep tech, most of my background is in and around finance and asset management. So I don't know if that's deep tech enough to be outer space or anything crazy like that. But most of what I see is really just trying to catch an edge in, and I would say active equities trading. So many of the companies that I spend time with are doing things like, let me give you, looks like we're back to it. So I guess just very quickly. Just very quickly, just to jump back to it, I think of deep tech in so many different vectors and have an interest in crypto and all kinds of quantum and other types of high technology. But I would say I comfortably invest where I know and I may have some edge. So earlier stage companies that track and monitor certain aspects of a business or people or an industry is usually where I live. So just wanted to give an example. There's a company called Paragon Intel that we've invested in that basically tracks where every corporate executive, public or private company executive, where they're traveling, and it might give an indication of corporate M&A activity or something else. That's one that, is kind of a cute example, but those are the types of things that we look at within my venture fund, because it's kind of a unique niche and not a lot of people are very familiar with alternative data. So just an example of what we do within deep tech.
Okay. What about any of the other panelists, Jack or Oliver or John? I know you have some of you have operating businesses, but
yeah, I can jump in that. We
great.
Think about now we are ending the digital world and also digital economy. So essentially, we lost 10 years. We have accumulated huge size of the data from all industry, all the sector. And we see basically, this is what we call the fourth industry revolution, will be impacted by everyone, every sector of industry. So the deep tech basically, although, you can think about, let me give it more color. What is what do we think about the AI? Essentially, that's called the non-parametric statistics. So what it means is, in traditionally, a lot of, the statistics and also inference based on the linear regression, linear model. Now, basically, we accumulate a huge data. Basically, essentially, the linear model will not fit anymore. Basically, we can use the non-linear model, non-parametric approach, basically extract more information from the big data set. This is basically why the machine learning AI is become so important to make decision, basically also impact the economy also. So let me give you a couple examples what we are doing now. And I think Jeremy mentioned that, in the finance world, a lot of things has been used in the, what is it called, fintech. It's part of the basic AI used how to analyze huge data of the financial data, include the tick data also. So we have been doing many years for that in that sense. And in early period, we first time I ended using the AI technology to solve the real problem. That's time we work with Federal Reserve. So what we do is, we build a huge model, use all the US bank data. We have at that time, have more than 14,000 of the bank data. So basically we use that data, try to build a model, can predict which bank will go to failure. That time we work with the Federal Reserve. That's the early, middle of the 1996. And also we work with the AT&T also. We build a model, use AI technology. What is also the machine learning. We both use them in the Bayesian network and also neural network. Try to build a model. What we do is, try to build a model to find which customer of the telephone user will go to default. Basically, will not pay the bill. So that time we also basically built a kind of non-polish model for consumer financing. It is very useful because traditionally you use non-linear model will not have that kind of accuracy. You can do that also.
I might jump in with a slightly different way of thinking about frontier tech. I think everything falls into either it's an evolution of something existing, or it's a revolution. It's something really quite new. It's not that one is better than the other. Evolution, you're using AI to optimize a product or service. One of the companies we're working with at the moment is an atomic battery company, or a fuel cell company. This battery has a lifespan over 20 years without charging. The way they got there was using AI-optimized 3D printing. It is going to be the most effective battery possible because AI is there, but it's there to optimize, and it's an evolution of something previous. In terms of revolution, the sorts of technologies which change the business model or change the approach. At one point, it was GPS, so the global positioning satellite. But they've got an issue. GPS only works with line of sight. So it's fantastic in most situations, but if you're indoors, if you're underground, GPS doesn't work. We're working with a company who have a very unique approach, and it's solved this problem. But it wasn't an evolution, it's very much a revolution. It's rethinking what's possible. And this couldn't have been done even 2 years ago. So I think that's maybe one way of looking at frontier or deep tech is through these two different lenses.
Great. That's very helpful.
I can give you as another example. For example, like it's precise medicine. You can use AI to identify a number of the disease in early period. So in traditionally, doctor will not be able to find out, but use AI, you can do that.
Yep, agreed. So I have a few more questions. I'll sort of try to target it to one panelist, and we can all pitch in after the panelist first sort of opines on it. So this is directed towards Jeremy. Jeremy, I know you're very active in sort of fintech, the data sciences and the like, or as applied to sort of financial services sort of oriented businesses. With respect to, can you comment on how the discovery and processing of data will evolve or has evolved, and how will AI, how is and has AI appended that process, or changed that process over time? Jeremy, there?
I don't think he's there.
I don't see him. Yeah. Okay.
And actually, just in case he isn't there, I can maybe answer the question, but it's also I know it's a company he's been talking to as well. So there's a company we advised a number of years ago who've got a very different approach to market information. It's a company called Precision Alpha out of the US, out of New York. The chief data scientist has a physics background. He studied with Professor Stephen Hawking at Cambridge, and he looked at the market as one of energy. And as we know in physics, you can't alter energy, it changes, it shifts, but you can measure it. Out of this work, they got a predictive model, which has a Sharpe ratio of over 3, which anyone in the space knows that's that's pretty strong. I'm sure, Jeremy, if you're back again, I'm sure we have views on this as well.
Okay. Next question for the panelists, for both of you, is in terms of deep tech, one of the drawbacks, I guess, that I would think of is the fact that it's so nascent that the total addressable market calculations and returns and the like, as a venture investor, are hard to sort of do from a quantitative perspective, right? Because a lot of these things are really even further beyond a lot of the horizons of a lot of sort of traditional venture, potentially. So how do you size deep tech as an investment? And use maybe some specific industries or as an example. How do you figure out, the TAM, the investment amounts, the sort of the return calculations and like? How do you look at that as an investor?
I mean, in my space, in some respects, it's easier. We know what the US defense budget is. We know what the European or global defense budgets are. We know they're going up year on year. We know as well that there's a situation between US and China where there's a battle for AI supremacy. I mean, it's really the next arms race, and there's a budget to be spent here. So we know the total addressable market really pretty well, but how's it going to shake out in terms of early investment opportunities? Well, last year there was a company we helped advise. They went from 0 revenue to $10 billion within a year. So a new company set up to solve one particular problem. The payback was very, very good if you're an investor. The other thing I think people don't realize about defense investing on the early stage is there's a VC firm set up to back early stage companies. The fund is quite big, and typically what happens is they'll say, we will fund you for X million dollars and at 0 equity, but we ask for matching funds from a typical VC, external VC firm. So that VC firm now knows that there's been a large investment, the technology has been vetted and very well vetted, and there's contract waiting for them. So you kind of can't lose. So I think anyone interested needs to know the process and the opportunities, because they're very big, but they're also not talked about that often.
We see, the deep tech basically can impact a lot of things. I think the key two things I like to mention. First thing is, deep tech can solve the problem and basically run the company more efficiently. Second, deep tech can solve the problem traditionally cannot solve. So if the company, with the same very niche technology, can easily build $100 billion company, that's why you saw the last couple of days news. The Apple doesn't want to break up his Apple Store. That's a part of the the ecosystem the Apple built up. So they are can use that kind of data, essentially generate a lot of actual revenue. Basically, don't spend a lot of time, don't spend a lot of money at all. So the huge market.
Good. Okay. Next question for both of you. So in terms of the industries potentially that you see in the next decade or so, what industries have yet to take advantage of, or yet to be part of sort of the deep tech phenomenon, meaning there's certainly a lot of early, not adopters, but sort of early participants, but are there other industries like ag tech or life sciences or others that you think are yet to really catch the deep tech AI wave that have yet to do so?
Yeah, I think it's a wide open market. We're still incredibly early with the types of technologies that are being applied. I mean, we're still thinking about the world in a binary kind of fashion. Our business models are still based on how things were done 50 or even 100 years ago. It's not just business, it's the same with legal, it's the same with medical, it's the same with most fields. yes, we're online, yes, we're digital, but companies have still not caught up to what is possible with AI and how it's going to change their business and their business model. I think some of the big ones that are coming are certainly going to be in the legal field. Europe is leading the way here. There's some very interesting work coming out of both the UK and the Netherlands. Medical could have an absolute revolution, and it depends how fast that can happen. The Far East is doing some interesting things as well. The US actually could take a lead on this if we can get more understanding around sharing patient data and security. And then the last one really is old-fashioned security. I mean, the number of hacks that are happening right now because of very, very, very poor security is ridiculous. We shouldn't have the US global pipeline shutting down, or the ambulance service in Ireland also shutting, and so on. So I think there's big opportunities. It's a case of, does the technology match the market, what the market actually wants? There's no point having great technology if the market doesn't actually want it at the moment.
Let me just mention a couple of industry we are working on that. I mentioned before, the first means is life science and basically the pharmaceutical industry. You know, the deep technology is very useful, and it also make the precise medicine become possible. So that's a huge market, huge market. The second is industry for quality control. Traditionally, you know, for quality control of product, you do the sampling. Now, basically, you can build AI technology, use deep technology, deep tech technology to build the system. You can inspect every sample, every product. So you can increase the quality control a lot. That's the second one. The third one is also what we are working on, because I have a movie production company. We see this is a very, very traditional industry, and they don't use the technology a lot. You know, it's very, very traditional. We see a lot of opportunity. We can use deep tech, basically quantify, and basically investment of each movie and each of TV series. Basically, you can quantify the risk, and you can maximize the return also. We can see a lot of opportunity in this kind of, you know, industry also.
Good. You have a question from the person audience?
That deep tech AI can be either evolutionary or revolutionary. Evolutionary aspect, which is essentially larger capacity and quicker increasing. Isn't it true that the old phrase "GIGO" still applies? You know, result is dependent on the input. So where garbage out? The garbage in, garbage out. Mm-hmm. Where does deep tech get rid of the filter of garbage in?
Did everyone hear the question? The panelists hear the question?
Yeah, I heard that. I think he made a very good point. You know, the deep tech technology, you have to have high quality data. That's why I'm saying financial world is the best data. You can have it. Rest of it is kind of very, very cautious. You have to clean up data very much. You know, you have to make sure your data is high quality. Otherwise, it just got garbage out. That's it. Make no sense. And also,
yeah, no, it's a good question. I'll answer it in a different way. So you've got the traditional approach, garbage in, garbage out. And traditionally that data has been cleaned. To begin with, it's not very good data. It's too narrow. It's too narrow in focus. You then have someone cleaning it up. You have a data scientist cleaning this data up, throwing away everything that's useful, throwing away an awful lot of the signal. That's the traditional, should we call it, binary approach. The results you get back are known. You know what you're looking for, and it's great for basic problems. It's great for basic spam detection and character recognition, this sort of thing. What's coming next, I mean, it's kind of here already, but it's evolving fast, is where you can take on an awful lot more data. I don't mean volume, I mean quality of data. So you're looking at not just one industry, but many, and you're looking at many data sources. You don't have someone cleaning it up. You don't have that human fingerprint on the data. Instead, we have new approaches which are much more quantum-based in approach, where you've now got an altogether more sophisticated outcome. And it's not just one outcome, it's multiple. So
can I,
depends.
Oliver, can I, that was actually going to be my next question. Can you help define quantum computing, right, broadly for people that don't know, and how does that impact, how does it fit into data sciences and deep tech, and what industries does it affect, and specifically on crypto and security and so forth? Okay, if you can just define level set on quantum computing and just give us your prognostication in terms of how far is that away? Is that forever? You know, is that 10 years? Is it, what's the scope and the time and so forth?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a hard thing to summarize, but you need to think of a classic computer as bytes, as ones and zeros, or yes or no. So a classical computer will see the world in black and white. A quantum computer, by how it functions, can think of it everything on a scale. It's shades of grey, if you like. So you now have a much more sophisticated way of looking at the world. Now, this is obviously a very, very fast summary, so it doesn't get into it. But I think we should split it into the hardware question and the software question. On the hardware side, we have some major companies doing great work. IBM Q especially, you should see what they're doing up in New York. That is coming on fast, but it's still some big issues in terms of scaling.
Yeah.
On the software side, we can already think about what approaches might work if you take a quantum approach. The one that always gets mentioned is to be able to crack encryption. That's absolutely what quantum computing can do. It can also solve for some really complicated medical problems. It's what will be able to make self-driving cars altogether safer in many situations. Timescale is really hard to predict. Some things are coming quite quickly, but there isn't a particular now it all works timeframe.
Do you think quantum is going to invalidate crypto, sort of all the sort of protocols, or is that, what are your thoughts on vis-a-vis that?
Yes and no. So it won't invalidate the idea of crypto, the idea of a distributed ledger, which is secured with public keys. That I think is here to stay. Will it break some of the encryption around crypto? Not necessarily, but I think you're going to have other issues. On the other hand, there's also a very strong movement towards building new approaches so this isn't going to be an issue. So embedded microchips with a new security approach are going to be key, but then also things like the dark cloud as well is also going to be very much necessary. So as much as you have the challenges, you also have solutions coming in and coming quite quickly.
Yeah, good. One question from the floor.
So to what extent does quantum computing depend on the older idea of neural networking? Relations of yes and no. Yes plus 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 or yes plus plus. There's no minus and
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I couldn't quite hear that.
to what extent does quantum computing rely on the concept of neural networking so that you can get a gradation of a decision, whether it's yes plus or yes plus
what's the dependency of quantum computing on neural networking?
Yeah, thank you. True quantum computing isn't that approach. Something which is more hybrid or more to sort of demonstrate what's possible, that's kind of how things look at the moment. It shouldn't be that node type network, but that's what we've got at the moment to be able to test, to build software, and so on. So I think if you're talking about just on the hardware side, no, it is something new. On the software side, at the moment, we're stuck with something which is not quite there. True quantum computing, what's the time frame for something which is large enough in scale that it can be used for practical things? There's already been some good demonstrations of that, but realistically, we're not there quite yet.
Good. I think we're at the end of the panel. I wanted to thank all the panelists and Marty, and look forward to doing it again soon.